4.5, fractions and decimals. Converting fractions to decimals. Write 3/4 as a decimal. We know 3/4 is the same as saying 3 divided by 4. So 4 goes on the outside, 3 goes on the inside, and you always add in your decimal because it is a fraction, so it will be a part of a whole. We know that 4 doesn't go into 3. Add in your 0. 4 goes into 30 how many times? 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract, and I'm going to get 2 left over. Bring down another 0. So remind yourself that we're going to use those place markers whenever we are not finished with decimals. When we bring down a 0, we're going to get 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20, and we're done. So our answer is 75 hundredths. Let's try 7/12, and then we're going to round it. So 7 divided by 12 means that we're going to have 12 on the outside and 7 on the inside. We know that 12 doesn't go into 7. We know that 12 goes into 70 how many times? 12 goes into 70 5 times, and 5 times 12 is 60. Subtract, and I get 10. Bring down a 0. 12 goes into 100 8 times. 8 times 12 is 96. Subtract, and I get 4. Bring down another 0. 12 goes into 40 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtract, and I get 4. Now at this point, we want to remind ourselves where the thousands place is so we know how many times to do this, because obviously it's going to keep going on and on. So where is the thousands place? Tenths, hundredths, thousands. Great, we made it. But can I do that yet? No, I have to have one more. So I'm going to put in another 0. This will be my last one because this is the 10,000th place, and that'll tell me what to round. So 12 goes into 40 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. So even though I have 4 left over, this 3 tells this 3 stay the same. So we can answer the question, and we know it's 0.583. Let's do 3/11. 3 divided by 11. 11 on the outside, 3 goes on the inside. We're going to put our decimal where we need it to be. Does not ask us to round, so we're going to keep going until we see a pattern and or until we are done. 11 goes into 3 0 times. 11 goes into 30 2 times. 2 times 11 is 22. Subtract, and I get 8. Bring down a 0. 11 goes into 80 7 times. 7 times 11 is 77. Subtract, and I get 3. Bring down a 0. I could see that 11 goes into 30 2 times. 2 times 11 is 22. Subtract, and I get 8. Bring down a 0. 11 goes into 80 7 times. 7 times 11 is 77. Subtract, and I get 3. So you should see that it's repeating 27, 27, 27. Whenever it's repeating, you're going to use a symbol to show it, and you don't have to keep going. It's 0 and 27 hundredths repeated. because it's the 27 repeated, you're going to draw a line all the way across the 27. That's the line that demonstrates it's repeating right there. And that's our answer. Converting decimals to fractions. Write 0 and 38/100ths as a fraction in lowest terms. So when we have a decimal, we know the place value where it ends. This is in the hundredths place, so we would write 38/100. I would then, because they're even numbers, divide by 2 or figure out their prime factorization so that I could simplify them quickly. When I divide by 2, I get 19/50. 19 is prime, so I'm done. 19/50ths is my answer. Let's try another one. We have 0 and 75/1000ths, and we want to convert it to a fraction. So we're going to take that because it's in the thousandths place, and we're going to write 75/1000. Because I know it's tenths, hundredths, thousandths, that's what that's going to decide here. I know that this is like quarters in my head, so I can divide these by 25 to see what I'm with, what I have after that. There are 40 quarters in $10. So if I imagine this to be 10, I know that this would be 40. 75 cents divided by 25 cents would be 3 quarters. 3 is prime and 40, so we're done. So we can't simplify it because of the 3. Let's try number 6. 16 has a whole number in the front, so we have 15. Then we have the 6 in the tenths place. We're going to leave 15 alone. We're going to focus on simplifying the 10 and the 6. What do they have in common? They both have a 2 in common. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we've simplified the fraction, and we end up with 15 3/5. At this point, they're now going to start giving you fractions and decimals in the same problem. You must have the same format. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You can choose all decimals, but you're going to choose your own path. You can choose your own, and I will always recommend that you use decimals. When you can use fractions, but a lot of people will usually turn them into decimals. I'm also going to strongly recommend that you memorize easy fractions. And at the end, I will go over those. So we have 19/20ths multiplied by 1 and 32/100ths plus 48/100ths. So the first step is to deal with the decimal. So we're going to leave 19/20ths, and we're going to add 1 and 32/100ths plus 0 and 48/100ths. And when we do, we get 8 plus 2 is 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1. So we have 19/20ths times 1.8. So the easier way to do this is to actually turn this into a decimal. So we're going to do that over here. How many times does 20 go into 19? It doesn't. It goes in 0 times. 20 goes into 190. Remember, you think about 2 times what is 19. 2 times 9 is 18. So we're going to have 2 times 9. 20 times 9 is 180. Subtract, and I'm going to get 10 left over. Bring down a 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. and now I have my decimal. So I have 0 and 95 hundredths times 1.8. Now we multiply. We have 0.95 times 1.8. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 times 8 is going to give me 72, plus 4 is 76. 0 times 8 is 0, plus 7 is 7. Bring down a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 9 is 9, and 1 times 0 is 0. Add them up. I get 0, 11, 9 and 7 is 16, plus 1 is 17. Add the 1. Move your decimal 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So my final answer is 1.71. Let's look at example 8. Now we can talk about those ones that we need to know that will help us to be successful, specifically like halves, fifths. Anytime you have those halves and fourths, you're going to want to memorize a set of numbers. So the memorized set that I offer, the one that I say, these are the ones that are considered easy and the ones that are used most on tests. So memorize the easy fractions. And they're not necessarily easy. They're the ones that are used on tests. So you're going to want to get good at the ones that they use most often. So a half is the same as 0.5. 1/4 is like 1/4, so 0.25. 1/5 is equal to 0.20. 3/4 is equal to 0.75 or 3/4. A third is equal to 0.3 repeated. And 2/3 is 0.6 repeated. Now, why is that important? Well, what you could see is here, I have a half, a 75, and 2/5. This would be the hardest one because if you don't realize that 1/5 is 0.2, so 2/5 is equal to 0.4. So we have a half, which we know is 0.5, plus 0.75 times 0.4. If you can jump and switch those to conversions, you can skip your division, which saves time. So now we can multiply. We have 0.75 times 0.4. Let's multiply. 5 times 4 is 20. 7 times 4 is 28, 29, 30. Carry the 3. We got 0 plus 3 is 3. We're going to not do the 0, and we're going to move our decimal 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. So we have 0.5 plus 0.3, because you'd always put a 0 in front. Add those together, 0.5 and 0.3, and you get 0.8. Let's try one more. Again, I see a half. So it's really saying, and I could think about this in a couple of different ways. It has a third exponent, and so I could deal with the fraction first, or I could make it into a decimal and then deal with the exponent. It's up to you. I like to deal with the exponent and the fraction first. So this is saying a half times a half times a half, and I think that that's a little bit more work, or a little bit easier this way than the decimal form, but that's my personal preference. Same thing with 1/4 times 1/4, because there's 2 of them this time, times 3.2. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Times 2.4 plus 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 4 is 16, times 3.2. So typically you would think that you have to change these to a decimal, but you don't. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply these two numbers, because this would be like saying over 1, so we would just multiply straight across. So we get 1 times 2.4 is 2.4, and 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3.2 divided by 16 times 1 is 16, so 3.2 over 16. And now we're going to do that division. So when we go to divide, we're going to divide. 8 goes into 24, or 2.4. 8 goes into 24 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract and I get 0. So 0.3 is the answer for that one. 3.2 goes on the inside, 16 on the outside. 16 goes into not 0, 16 goes into 32 2 times, and you get 32 and 0. So you get 0.2. Add them together. 0.3 plus 0.2 is 0.5. And that's our final answer. And if you need to see that vertically, you can always write it out. And that is 3.5 fractions and decimals.